The Big Ideas Platform is a thought leadership initiative that's been developed by the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, which is an unconventional school that's designed to attract, develop, and also produce a new generation of political leaders who will listen and serve the new class of citizens who know their rights. The Big Ideas Platform aims to promote dialogue, collaboration, and action to address the present challenges faced by African communities.
My name's Camry Apollo. Welcome to the Big Ideas Platform podcast. On this episode of the Big Ideas Platform podcast, we will be speaking with Samson Ogole about his big idea of farming as a viable business. He is the team lead for Upepsia Place Limited. They are the owners of Soilless Farm Lab, which uses technology as an enabler for agriculture. For Farmer Samson, as he likes to be called, agriculture is more than just food production with zero hunger as its goal. It's the foundation for sustainable development, job creation with no poverty as a goal, healthy living as well as national development. So let's get right into it. Now, to start the conversation, I would like you to talk about Soilless Lab and what you do there. It's a term that is a misnomer to some people. When we think about farming, we think of the earth, we think of soil. So to hear the term Soilless Lab, it strikes a lot of, it piques our interest. Tell us a bit about what you do there.
All right, thank you. So what we do at Soilless Farm Lab are four things. Number one, first and foremost, we are farmers. And as farmers, we grow our crop without the use of soil. We grow soilless, and we also do protected agriculture, meaning either we are using a greenhouse, a screen house, or a net house. And the reason for this, like you already stated in your statement, is we want to ensure we can produce year-round without depending on season. So the choice of whether we use a greenhouse, a screen house, or a net house is basically based on what does the plant require, what needs to be controlled around the abiotic factors. Then the choice of not growing plants with soil is because we want to, number one, bring farms closer to the people. In Nigeria, like other nations, one of the first victims of civilization is usually agriculture. Everywhere civilization gets to, agriculture is pushed out because the value of land is seen as being too valuable for you to do farming, where you can put in real estate, buildings, and all of that. So the goal is, can we close the gap between the farms and the cities for us? And for us to do that, we need to be able to maximize that land. Hence, we are doing things like vertical farming to close the gap. We do precision agriculture to ensure there is no guesswork in whatever kind of thing that we are planting. And we are doing soilless to ensure that we have input control so that the amount of fertilizers and every other thing that we have to use as input is at its minimum, but our output is maximized. So, and of course, this also allows us to bring youth back into agriculture on one part. So first, we are farmers. The second part of what we do is to train others. Like you rightly stated, what we do is not a kind of a norm in Africa, especially in Nigeria. So it means that the skill required to do this is not so common on the street. So we are also intentional about training people. We are currently on a project called Enterprise for Youth in Agriculture, where we are training 1,000 young people every quarter for free in partnership with Mastercard Foundation. We also just started Enterprise for Seniors in Agriculture, where we are training about 20 to 30 people monthly for free around agricultural technology and the business of agriculture. Then number three is we are also providing ease for the consumers to access what we do. We are starting off first with Lagos State. At the moment, we are in 14 stores across Lagos where people can access our processed vegetables easily from these stores. Beyond that, we are now in the process of setting up a mall which is just going to be for fresh vegetables from the farm, because I realized that now farmers have become a mystery to the consumers. People don't know where their produce comes from, so there is nobody to hold accountable for the quality of produce that is on the shelf.
Now, talking about the kind of products you grow, what do you grow, soilless lab? For example, can I grow yam? Or am I strictly restricted to vegetables? What can I grow? What's the limitation with this system of farming?
All right. So you can grow anything, but not everything is economically viable to grow without soil. Because in soilless system, it's just you creating a medium for yourself to do whatever it is you want to grow. But not everything that you want to grow will be economically viable. So it's important to know what is economically viable. So let me use a very simple example. Pumpkin, ugu. Pumpkin is a vegetable we eat a lot in Nigeria. Ugu or even water leaf does not make sense to grow it without soil in Nigeria context, because the local farmer grows it every day. It's a very, very affordable food. So why am I going to spend an expensive technology to grow that here? But I can grow that same ugu in Dubai, in UK, in US, and make a lot of money. Reason is the alternative for them in Dubai is to import the crop. So the point being, it's not whether it can grow it, it is this economically viable where I am? So a crop that is not economically viable in Lagos can be viable in Kaduna. It will not be viable in Nigeria. It can be viable in UK. Our focus is on vegetables, premium vegetables. Now, we call it premium not because of the price, but because of accessibility. How easy is it for people to get these crops? If it is not easy for you to get in the open market, that is what we want to grow and put in the stores.
Okay, that really answers the question a lot. So certain factors will determine the economic viability of the system of agriculture that you use.
Yes.
Right, let's come to acceptability of the idea. I'm sure you caught my countenance when I started the conversation, when I said I think a farm, I think green fingers, getting my hands into soil. But here I am speaking to a gentleman about farming without soil. So how receptive have people been to this idea of farming so far?
So good. Let me answer it in two ways. Number one, I don't know of anybody that goes to the market and goes, I want to buy soilless or soy-based plants. We just care about the produce. How good does it look? Is it affordable? And I say that because for people who are thinking of probably coming into soilless farming or greenhouse farming, it's important you put in mind that people want to buy the produce, not the technology. A lot of people were, what's the word now? The cultural acceptability was first the issue we had to deal with. Because again, Africans, we are very cultural people, and they felt this is us, this has to be demonic. Which was why years back I was called the wizard farmer. Like, oh, what you are doing is sorcery. And again, it was important for me to try to explain in simple terms for them to understand what it was. And the way I try to explain it is using our regular way of cooking. I remember growing up with my grandparents, we used to cook food using firewood. Then from firewood, we moved on to charcoal. From charcoal, we had kerosene stove. From kerosene stove, there was then gas cooker, electric cooker, and so on and so forth. Now, you would agree with me that what was constant all through is heat. The food I am trying to cook does not care how the heat came. All it is concerned about is there is heat. As long as there is heat, the food will get cooked. The same thing with soilless farming. All the plant cares about is nutrients. Do I have access to nutrients? As long as there is nutrients, the plant will grow. So whether the nutrient is coming in the air, in the soil, in the water, the plant does not really care. And as people got to understand the system, the mystery left, the acceptability increased. not because it tastes different or anything, no, but just because they are sure that the vegetables will not have sand in it. Then for those who use it for salad, they want something without holes because the greenhouse ensures that insects are not coming in to poke, so there are no holes. So they are buying what it provides, not because it is soilless or not.
We'll go on a quick break. When we return, Farmer Samson will talk to us about the continent's teeming youthful population and the role they might be able to play in agriculture, especially agriculture as a viable business.
The Big Ideas platform is a thought leadership initiative that's been developed by the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, which is an unconventional school that's designed to attract, develop and also produce a new generation of political leaders who will listen and serve the new class of citizens who know their rights. The Big Ideas platform aims to promote dialogue, collaboration and action to address the present challenges faced by African communities.
Welcome back to the Big Ideas platform podcast. I'm here speaking with Farmer Samson Ogole, and his big idea is to make agriculture a viable business. Right, Farmer Samson, I'd like to pick up where you stopped off, and that is, again, the acceptability. You've talked about some of the challenges you had early on. Africa has a very youthful population, and food insecurity is a continent-wide problem, isn't it? Of the continents play in agriculture, can they convert it to be a business? As you say, this is your big idea, farming as a viable business. Can the youth embrace this thing around, turn it around and make it into a viable business?
Yes, they can. But before they turn it into a viable business, I feel the job does in agriculture that can lead to wealth. Now, I say that because you realize if we look at the banking sector, the oil sector, and other sectors that have made it big, these sectors made it big because young people came into it en masse. And the reason the young people came into these sectors was because they realized that those in the sector were becoming wealthy in the sector. You meet a young chap on the street to come into agric, those in agric must start making money first. Because yes, we need the young people, but we need the pathway to be clear, because when these young people come, they are the ones that will move agriculture away from the manual form to the technology that is so much needed in Africa. I mean, it's on record that Africa has the largest land size in the world today. Yet, we are still depending on Europe to feed us in Africa. That is an anomaly. And the reason for that is not because we do not have the population to farm the land, but it is because we do not have the right tools for this population to use to farm. You go to Netherlands, you see a single man lends their brain to agric if they do not see a clear path to wealth. Once that clear path to wealth is created, these young people would now see agric as an option. Sometimes you see a few young persons come into agric, they do agric as where you wait till you get a job, where you wait till you get a breakthrough in another sector. But if they believe that we can make it in this sector, they would now be willing to give it their all. Because I know people say things like young people are not patient. I'm like, no, and make the environment conducive for agric business to thrive. What is taught in secondary school is agriculture, not agribusiness. And young people will not be interested in agriculture. It is the business of agriculture that will get them interested. How to make the money in agric, not how to do production, because they know, even as young people, that nobody will pay you for owning a farm. Nobody will give you money for being a farmer. We will pay you because there is something you are producing that can turn to money. And we need to make that something that the whole course is centered around, so that they understand the business, not just the production. Because again, most of the farmers they see around are poor. So it means that the curriculum needs to be intentional about showing there is a possibility for wealth in this thing.
Interesting. You mentioned that I'm part of a group that is looking at infusing surge in agriculture, if we're going to see a number of youth being turned to agriculture, then we need to approach it from an agribusiness perspective. Food security is that we need to eat. And most importantly, they need to know that they can make a very good living from this business, as you've rightly pointed out. Let me come to this other aspect. That is the situation we find ourselves in today. The rising costs affect the factors of food production in your industry, especially from this perspective of hydroponics. That's your lands, your labor, your capital, entrepreneur, the basics.
Most farmers in Nigeria today are not running a business. Let me first say that. They are gambling. And why do I call it gambling? You realize that when these farmers want to get their inputs, the market determines the price of the inputs, which is understandable. But when the farmers want to sell their produce, the market again determines the price of this produce, which means the farmer stands at a point where he is not controlling the cost of his inputs. He is not controlling the cost of his output. He is at a point where he is just gambling. Now, this harsh reality simply means that the farmer today does not know what tomorrow holds. He is just in a state of, what's the word now? He has to depend on faith rather than on science when it comes to agriculture, despite the fact it was called agricultural science, not agricultural religion. So this is one basic fact affecting most farmers, a lot of farmers. Now, having said that, looking at the factors of production and as it affects soilless farming, again, we need land. Yes, we can take advantage of the vertical space, but the vertical space still depends on land. That is why I talked about things like having to do things like premium crops, because you want to ensure that you are growing what can give you the maximum output, maximum revenue on the lands that you have. And again, let me also say that the goal for soilless farming is not to compete with soil. Rather, it is to complement soil, because the reality is, if the soilless farmer chooses to compete and fight with the soil-based farmer, it is already a lost battle, especially the smallholder farmer. Now, let me explain it this way so that it would make sense. If I look at the place where we are in this village, Awowo, I go and probably meet one Iyamukaila who is growing, let's say, pepper. Iyamukaila got that land for free from her parents. Iyamukaila will use her children to clear the land. Iyamukaila will get tomato seed or pepper seed from a friend to plant on the land. Iyamukaila would manage the land herself. Yes, it is not big, but she manages it herself. And the problem is there are hundreds of Iyamukailas around. On the flip side, the land I got, I paid for it from the beginning. I bought the land. I paid people to clear the land. I paid for my greenhouse. I will pay people to do the planting, do the maintenance, do the harvesting and all. So you realize that from the get-go, Iyamukaila is an advantage. Now, the wisdom I now need to understand is I need to grow what she will not grow to complement her. Because if I grow what she can grow, her cost of production is lower. The number of people like her are more. They will determine the market price, which means I am setting up myself up to fail. It's not about the economy yet. It's the business model that will be faulty. So I must be able to maximize my land. The next one is labor. Like I already said, labor is already threatening even the open field farmers because a lot of laborers are not available. This is where we have an advantage because we do training. We have young people who get to understand this kind of agriculture. Much more than that, the majority of things that you need labor for do not affect us. One of the major things you need labor for in open field farming is land clearing, farm maintenance. With our weed mat, we don't have to weed throughout the season or throughout the year. The weed mat takes care of that. Part of the farm is automated. So with a click of the button, we can get things done without having to go and start shouting, Jide, when will you do this? Why have you not added this? Why not remove this? So you realize our dependence on labor is reduced, but we now need what is called a skilled laborer. The regular farmer needs an unskilled laborer. Now, because we know we need a skilled laborer, these skills are not readily available. We now have to be intentional in ensuring that we get young people in university as interns, train them on some of these skills, so that by the time they are graduating, if their love for agriculture still remains, farming, the capital investment to start is high at the beginning. For our business model, it is such that it requires high investment to start, but low investment to continue to maintain. So low maintenance cost, high startup cost. And there is this man called Michael Porter that brought up what you call the Porter 5. One of the things he talked about in Porter 5 for a viable business is a business that is able to create barrier of entry. Fortunately, we did not have to create a barrier for entry. The system of farming created the barrier that you need high investment to come in outside just the knowledge.
Farmer Samson, I want to go to where this all started for you, because you have grown up in an environment that has seen agriculture practiced in a particular way and has been practiced that way for a long time. What led you down this path? Was there a eureka moment for you when you suddenly realized, you know what, there has to be getting this thing done? How did it happen for you? What led you down this path of hydroponics?
All right, thank you. So I had the privilege of serving in IITA, International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, in Ibadan, Oyo State. And during my service year, the development of aeroponics for growing yam. So aeroponics is a method of growing plants in the air. It was being used for yam. The development was just starting, and I was posted to that department. And I remember while working there as a corps member, I kept looking at the people around me like, oh, this is, my boss, then awesome man, Dr. Maria. And I look at him, I'm like, he's a farmer and he's living a good life. He's riding a Jeep, he has an official car, his wife is good, his kids are doing well. And again, another big part for me was the fact that he was a doctor, Dr. Maria, a doctor, PhD holder. And I remember him always asking me some questions around, I am fighting in an area where there are specialists in my front. So I have to do a lot to differentiate myself. But if I bring my biochemistry to agri, this seems like where I can be a boss overnight. Like nobody knows what I know, because everybody around me are basically agri experts, but are not people that know a lot around biochemistry, which means there is a space here. And I think much more than that, I was also able to answer a long-term question that was in my mind, which was market that is ready for responsible eating. And that was it. And a friend of mine, Udoka Madu, goes, okay, Samson, let's turn this thing into a business. We are here to support you and all of that. And that was how I came into agri.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I feel like I could talk to you for such a long time. There's so much I can learn from you, but I know your time is precious. But how easy is it for a first timer to, for example, get into this system of farming? I live in a block of flats, so land is a premium, especially here in Lagos, where I reside. How easy is it for someone like me to, get into the system of farming? What do you recommend I start with?
Okay, yeah, so it's easy to learn. The first thing is getting the right knowledge. Once you have the knowledge, so knowledge of your environment will let you know what is available around me that I can use this principle on to achieve. I remember sometimes a week or two ago, I was in the space and they were saying, oh, how do we start farms? And I said, your mop bucket is a farm, because your mop bucket is the exact replica of what an hydroponics farm is.
Okay, Farmer Samson, as we wrap up the conversation, I'd like you to put a question or make one request of any of this group of people now. What would it be?
All right, thank you. So speaking to people who are thinking around agriculture or not, I would always say, check out your budget for food, check out your budget for feeding. Nigeria Bureau of Statistics released last year that Nigerians spend over 50% of their income on food. And regardless of who you are, agriculture is taking money from you. So the question is, at what point are you going to take money from people using agriculture? Thank you.
That's a good one. So how can people get in touch with you on social media? What are your social media handles? What is your website address?
So the website is www.sfarmlab.com. S for Samson, but the S there is not Samson though. S farm, FARM, lab, LAB.com. Social media handles at S Farm Lab, whether it's on Instagram or on Twitter. Then on Facebook, it's just strictly Farm Lab. On LinkedIn, it is Soilless Farm Lab in full, Soilless, SOILLES. Then for anybody that wants to get in touch with us, they could contact the admin directly or the head of communication. For the admin, it is admin@sfarmlab.com, or for the head of communication, genoidem.BB@sfarmlab.com. And of course, anybody can visit the farm anytime.
Okay, thank you so much, Farmer Samson Ogole. It's been very, very interesting, very informative for me listening to you and your idea on agriculture. Farmer Samson Ogole shared his vision for farming becoming a sustainable business. He explains that agriculture can be a tool for job creation, healthy living, and national development. According to him, his vision for soilless farming is meant to complement traditional farming by focusing on viable crops. He ends by saying that younger generations should be encouraged and educated in agricultural practices. And that's his big idea. Join us again on another episode of the Big Ideas Platform podcast. Until the next time, I'm Camry Apollo.